I guess that announced it to everybody, huh? Okay. You guys are being recorded. Okay, I'm gonna get started here. I usually wait like 3 minutes after, just to let everybody in here. Well, first off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Casey Harriet. I am the R3 coordinator for National Wild Turkey Federation and Oklahoma Department of Wildlife. It's a partner position between the two entities. I'm called an R3 coordinator, which stands for recruitment, retention, and reactivation. So layman's terms is I help create programs and initiatives that increase hunting participation here in Oklahoma. So super glad to have you guys here. We got a really good turnout. And just this is a different way I'm going to do this from last year. So anybody that's on the call right now, I'm going to give you a code word. And I want you to email me back the code word, and that will register you guys in for the turkey vest. That makes sense. So instead of writing everybody down, and hopefully I can find a registry list, but I want everybody to email me back where I sent you that link to get on it. I want you to email me back the code word, and the code word for this week is going to be Turkey Tuesday. Everybody got that one? And this is what's going to keep you in the running for these turkey vests that I'm going to give away at the end. So Turkey Tuesday is the word. But I'm so glad you guys are here. We have an awesome series coming up, and the first of the series, as you saw, is going to be talking about habitat, physiology, behavior. Trying to get a good foundation before we move into how to hunt these guys. And so with us, we have Mr. Chad Parkey. It says Michael Parkey on here. It's the guy with the awesome beard right there. And he is our guest speaker today, and he is going to be the one chatting with us about everything turkey behavior, habitat, species, etc. And so he is a member of the NWTF Oklahoma State Board. And I'm going to let him kind of introduce himself further, and then I'm going to start with a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm just going to flip through the slides. And Chad, tell me when I need to flip, if I'm stalled out or anything, or just what we discussed earlier. So I'll give Chad the floor at this point.
Thank you very much, Casey. Like Casey said, I'm on the state board of the NWTF here in Oklahoma. And we also have Lynn Hagerman here, who is the president of the state board. He's kind of sitting in and going to offer us some wisdom, I hope, here in a little bit, maybe. Anyway, we're going to kind of go over some of the behaviors of the turkeys, and I'm going to limit everything to the state of Oklahoma, which is really a good state because we have 3 of the 5 subspecies here in Oklahoma. So we have Merriam's, Rios, and Easterns here in the state. So it's really a good broad spectrum of what we see across the country.
Hey, Chad, I'm sorry to interrupt you real fast. I do want to tell everybody we're going to go through this slideshow, and we're going to leave about 20 to 30 minutes for questions at the end. So if you have questions, just either type them in the chat box, or we'll open it up for question and answer where you can just directly ask Chad questions or Lynn questions or myself. But I meant to bring that up earlier. So just to kind of keep everything running smoothly, that's how we're going to handle that. But I'm going to start the presentation now if you're good with that, Chad.
Go for it.
You can see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead and flip to the next slide, Casey.
5 subspecies. So this is the eastern.
Yep. We've got that in the eastern part of Oklahoma, basically the entire eastern border of Arkansas, Missouri.
Oops, sorry.
They are probably the largest population of turkeys across the country, and they're probably the largest of the subspecies as far as physical size goes. Next slide, please.
Doesn't matter on this one.
Osceola is not an Oklahoma bird. It's only lives in the southern part of Florida. Highly sought after bird if you're wanting get what they call a grand slam. But we don't have them in Oklahoma, only in the very southern part of Florida. Next slide, please. Merriams. We have a small population of Merriams in the far western end of the panhandle of Oklahoma. Probably the prettiest of the turkeys. It has real white tail fan tips, and they're just a beautiful bird. Next slide, please. The Rio Grande is probably the most populated bird in the state of Oklahoma. It spans from western Oklahoma all the way to the borders of eastern Oklahoma. A lot of times in western Oklahoma and in eastern Oklahoma, you'll end up with a hybrid of a Rio Grande or a Marion or a Rio Grande and an eastern. Very vocal birds. You can really make them sound off. They've got a little bit darker tail fan tips, kind of a copper bronze color. And going back to the eastern, it's got a much darker tail tips. This picture here doesn't show, they're really darker than that, but that's kind of how you can tell them apart. Next slide, please. Gulls is down in Mexico and Arizona. I don't know anything about them. They're a pretty bird. They're much like the Marion. Next slide. There's your subspecies ranges, and you can kind of see that Oklahoma's got the best of all worlds. It does not show the Marions, but in that far western corner of the panhandle, there's pretty good flocks there of the Marions. But we've got just about everything. So the life of a turkey. In the fall, the flocks will break up. You'll have flocks of hens, and you'll have what you call bachelor groups of the male turkeys, the gobblers, and the jacks, which is a juvenile gobbler. And really all they do is try to survive and establish dominance. There will always be a dominant gobbler in every flock. And I'm going to go through some of that here a little bit whenever we get away from the slides, because there's some pretty important things we've recently learned about the dominant gobbler. Next slide, please. Spring. Whenever the sun starts changing, we start getting a whole bunch, get more daylight. The turkeys will get into their breeding cycle. Usually in Oklahoma here, it starts first or second week of March, and will go mostly all the way through the month of April. This is where you start calling the gobblers by using a hen vocalization, and it's pretty cool to do, because what you're doing is exactly the opposite of what a turkey's instinct is. A gobbler will gobble to get the hens to come to him, but we're making hen sounds trying to make the gobbler come to us, which is exactly the opposite of what they're supposed to do. During the nesting cycle, the hens will lay an egg every day for a couple weeks, somewhere between 10 and 14 eggs in the clutch, and they will not sit on those nests until after they've laid all of their eggs. So they'll lay an egg one day, then they'll go and do their thing all day long, and they'll fly up to the gobblers at night, come back down and do it all over again. Once they're done laying all their eggs, they will sit on the nest pretty much full time. And they do that so that all the eggs will hatch at the same time. And that's when they're absolutely the most vulnerable. Now, we don't hunt the hens in the spring, and we don't hunt them in the fall anymore, but they're vulnerable to predators and floods and hay baling and brush hogging and all kinds of stuff because they nest along the field edges. With that being said, while that hen is on the nest, the gobblers are still wanting to play. So that's when they're the most vulnerable for us to hunt them. Okay, it's critical to learn the difference between hens and gobblers. A gobbler will have a head that is kind of red, white, or blue, and it could be all three at the same time. The hen picture here, they have kind of a gray head with some red outlines. They're a much smaller bird also.
Sorry, this is a Jake. We went from a Jake first.
I'm sorry, that's a juvenile gobbler. I apologize. Next slide. You can't, the difference between a Jake and a mature gobbler will be the beard length and also the spur length. It's kind of hard to distinguish the spur length while you're hunting them, but that's the true tail is the spur length. Now, going back to something else that we just recently learned is 1-year-old turkeys, which is a Jake, they will try to breed, they want to play the game, but they are infertile. They cannot fertilize an egg. Therefore, if you shoot Jakes, which is legal, you can do it as long as it's got a beard, you can shoot that Jake. But keep in mind that a turkey's lifespan is from 3 to 4 years, and if you take a Jake out of the flock, you're reducing 2 to 3 years of breeding rather than taking a mature gobbler. So that's pretty important. It's changed my thoughts on hunting Jakes. Again, the gobbler will have a red, white, or blue head and red wattles, and they're just a much bigger bird than Jakes or hens. Next slide, please. There's the hen. She will have a gray head with a little bit of red highlights around the neck area, and she's extremely small compared to a Jake or a gobbler. Next slide. I've already kind of gone over that. You can see the difference in the heads there. He got his head removed. That's a gobbler. Preseason scouting. There's a lot of ways to hunt turkeys, and a lot of people will roost those birds. In other words, they'll go out just after dark and try and get them located by shot gobbling. You could do that with an owl call, a coyote call, a peacock call, a crow call. Just about anything will make them gobble, and then you can go back the next morning and set up on them and hunt them when they fly down. The other way we do it is called run and gun, and that's just go out in the morning and start moving around and trying to make one gobble. And the third way that is becoming extremely popular is called cast and blast. Sand bass and crappie start running in the spring, and if you go out in the rivers, start fishing the rivers and calling sporadically, you can strike a gobble and get out of the boat and go hunt them and fish all day. It's a lot of fun. I'm gonna get kind of graphic here. There's the difference between a hen and a gobbler turd. Next slide.
Wait, I have a question. This part didn't make sense to me. So I've noticed that the hen's turd is like more of a curly Q. Is that kind of common?
The gobbler scat, if you will, is shaped like a J.
Okay.
And yeah, why that's like that, I couldn't begin to tell you.
Okay, next slide.
So whenever you're scouting for turkeys, you look for scratches, and that'll just be big bare spots where they've scratched and bugged and seeded and dusted. They'll dust themselves to get the mites off of them. So that's one thing you want to look for. There's the difference between a gobbler and a hen track. That gobbler track is the one on the bottom. It's much larger than the hen track, which is on the top. And you can see where the bottom two toes, if you will, on the gobbler are spread quite a bit ways apart, and there's a void in between the three toes. So that's how you can tell the difference between a hen and a gobbler track. Go back to roosting. There's a lot of ways, you can make them gobble. It's a lot of fun. I prefer to run and gun, but that doesn't mean that I won't roost a bird and go hunt him either. So it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in or how lazy I am that day. If you're looking for turkeys in big open fields and canyons, you want to keep your eye on the edge of the tree lines. They will stay real close to those tree lines in order to escape predators or anything that might be hunting them. Folks, there's a copy of my card. Go ahead and write my phone number down and my email. If you have any questions or just want to talk turkeys, you can get a hold of me anytime, and I'll be glad to spend some time with you and see if I can help you out.
I'll leave that up for a little bit longer. But at this point, we kind of breezed through that pretty quickly. But I'm sure everybody has questions. And I think I'm gonna, hopefully everybody has that. And if not, you can always email me back and I will share his contact information for you. But now we have a chat box over here. If anybody had any questions, you guys can type in the chat box, or we can discuss it just right here too. So if anybody has any questions, either raise your hand on the video or on the little reaction deal, or you can type your message in there.
While you're doing that, I'd like to go through these notes that I put out, some of the lessons learned we've gotten over the last year or so, if that's all right, Casey.
Absolutely.
And it'll kind of go back and forth from what the slides we went through and some of the new lessons learned, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Or you're gonna be crunched for time. I don't want to
No, we're good.
get out of it. So turkey hens. The hens will traditionally lead the flock around. There's always a dominant hen in the flock, and she will always make the decision where the flock goes. Said that they'll lay an egg a day through the breeding season, up to 12 to 14 eggs. I don't need to repeat that unless somebody has questions. The nest and hens are very susceptible to predators, herbicides and pesticides, farm equipment during that time frame. Jakes are 1-year-old male turkeys. They have the instinct and desire to breed, but are not fertile in their first year. A turkey on average will live 3 to 4 years. Therefore, by harvesting jakes, the chance of productive breeding falls down to 2 to 3 years at best. Gobblers are mature male turkeys. They're traditionally dominant gobblers in a flock. He is responsible for most of the breeding. So in a flock, the dominant gobbler will do almost all the breeding. So if during the breeding season you take the dominant gobbler out of the flock, it'll take 3 to 4 days, maybe up to a week for another dominant gobbler to be established. And then he will pick up all the breeding. This is why they backed our turkey season up this year. It's always been April 6th to May 6th. They backed it up to April 16th to May 16th for this reason. It gives them a chance to do more breeding. Herbicides. Many herbicides have been shown to be directly toxic to wild birds, most notably the widespread herbicide 2,4-D. The more common effect herbicides have on birds is the destruction of their habitat where they live, feed, and raise their families. Pesticides. When birds eat pesticide-coated seeds or insects that have pollinated, I can't even pronounce this word, treated plants, Lynn could probably pronounce it, neosnocotidae, I don't know what it is. The chemicals can harden the bird development over time. They decrease birds' abilities to reproduce. The chemicals can have an effect for years after the birds consume them. Haying and brush hogging. Ground nested birds rely on field edges and cover to nest and raise their poults to the point where they can fly. Turkeys in this part of the country, Oklahoma, breed from March to late May, give or take. The poults will hatch in early to mid-June. The poults will not be able to fly or escape farm equipment until sometime in early to mid-July. This is where we're recommending that landowners don't hay or brush hog until July. That gives the poults a chance to fly up out of harm's way. The other big thing on the decrease in turkey populations is the drought. Oklahoma saw the peak of our turkey population in 2011, and that's when we had our drought. And it went for almost a full year of next to no rain, and that really hurt our turkey population. We have also had several mini droughts throughout there, and they just have not rebounded the way we'd like to see them do. And then when it comes to predators, you got nest robbing predators who eat the eggs. That would be your raccoons, your skunks, your possums, snakes, crows, roadrunners, and feral hogs. If we have a chance to take care of some of those predators while we're out, we should do that, I think. Other predators that are a threat to the hens are coyotes, bobcats, owls, hawks, feral hogs, feral cats, and dogs. That's what I got from my notes, Casey.
Awesome. Thank you, Chad. So we got some questions in the chat here. And I'm going to open this up. Like Lynn, I, and Chad will all answer these. We'll just, I'm just going to field them. I'm going to give them both to Chad and Lynn, though, to answer more so. And if I can contribute, I can. They're the experts, though. I've only been turkey hunting for probably 4 years now. So, okay. So someone asked, how important is camo cover and noise?
Extremely.
They have great eyesight.
Yes, they've got extremely good eyesight and they've got extremely good hearing. If you can hear a turkey, I promise you, he can hear you. There's just no doubt about it. You want to get into as much cover as you can and still be able to maneuver or raise your gun without being seen. But your camo and your cover and movement are extremely important, and you don't want to be jostling around making noise.
I think we probably will chat about this next week, though. But one of the things that I always try to do is have my gun shouldered and kind of rested on my knee, so that you don't have to do a whole movement of having to raise your gun up when you see. It's kind of uncomfortable, but you'll scare off many turkeys in the movement to shoulder your shotgun to get a shot off. So just having it rested on your shoulder and the top of your knee is pretty handy to do. Okay, so how effective can imitating gobbling calls be?
It can be extremely effective, but you need to be extremely careful doing that. I would recommend not gobbling to turkeys on public land. And when you do it, you want to do it as a last resort. And there's another method that's getting pretty popular. It's called reaping or fanning, and that's where you get a turkey fan and move it around in front of you. I'd be extremely careful doing that too. It's real easy to get shot in the face. But I never gobble to try and get the interest of another gobbler. I think it's just it's kind of dangerous.
There's just lots of alternatives too. There's just like many other calls that you can try before having to resort to something like that too, that are pretty effective, which we'll chat about next week. Someone asked, do you have a preferred call, diaphragm, box, slate?
I personally, I don't use anything but a diaphragm call. And I prefer doing that because I can do it better than a slate or a box call. And the other thing is my hands are free if I'm using a diaphragm call. If I'm using a box or a slate, I'm using both my hands, and I can't. I've got to drop that call in order to shoulder my firearm. Not saying that it's better or worse. I prefer a diaphragm call.
Lynn, what do you think?
I think diaphragm works best too.
Yeah.
And do not ever take a 10-year-old out and expect to get a turkey.
Well, I can say as
Not
a
said-
as a newer hunter, the diaphragm call is probably the most advanced. So that is something as we try to be cognizant of like our crowd here, and hopefully a lot of these people are listening because they're first time hunters. It's good to go with someone and have a caller. And if you can't operate a diaphragm call, only because it's handy when you're solo hunting, but if you have someone else calling for you, they can run the box call, they can do a diaphragm call, and then you can focus on your shot. There's also a call, it's push-pull call that you can stick to your shotgun, which we'll talk about, which in a very convenient location, if you stick it to your shotgun, you can push it and it squeaks and calls like a hen, but it's less motion. But I've never used one of those. I just think that would be an alternative if you're going to try to hunt by yourself, using a call like that if you've not yet mastered the diaphragm call.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I just use diaphragm calls. I carry a box, I carry a slate, but I hardly ever take them out of my vest.
When we say diaphragm call, if you don't know, it's those little like half moon calls that you see when they put their hands to their mouth and they're making all that noise. That's a diaphragm call they put in the roof of their mouth. A lot of people try to practice on it on their way to work, driving in traffic or whatever, because it's just easy to do. Plus, do it by yourself because it's super annoying when you have a spouse or a significant other that does it all the time. So do that on your own time in your own vehicle by yourself. But that's one of the ways that you can practice it and get ready. There it is, right there.
I used to tell people back when I was married, I'd practice at home.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've been married forever, so. But she doesn't.
Well, great. I think we covered that one. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the different calls, like I said, next week when we talk about gear and essentials and stuff and what's in your pack. Okay. Are we in danger of losing a season due to low population numbers?
That was talked about last summer whenever they made the regulation changes, and I sure hope not. Of course it could happen if the flocks don't rebound, but I think the measures that have been taken for this resolution that they brought up last summer should really help. Plus, we've had quite a bit of rain from last season to now, so at least in the mid to eastern part of the state. The western part of the state, of course, is always hurt, but hopefully they'll rebound, and hopefully they'll bring it back to where we have a 3-bird limit again. I hope.
Yeah, I think the wildlife department is definitely doing all it can. And we got experts and new information coming out, new studies coming out that really help guide our management decisions. And I think that they've done a really good job about handling it this way. And I'm sure they will move back to a 2 to 3 bag limit when we can. Shameless plug here, the NWTF does tons of habitat work for turkeys. And I think we would be remiss as the NWTF employee myself to not encourage everybody to get involved with and non-government organization and conservation organization like National Wild Turkey Federation or something of that sort. We would prefer National Wild Turkey Federation, but all your membership dollars and all the banquets and the fundraising go into creating hunters and creating turkey habitat. And funding projects, habitat projects, etc. So, like I said, shameless plug here, but I think we would be remiss without talking about habitat and how we can improve it and where the dollars go from NWTF to do that. And that's part of being a member for NWTF. So there's that.
Right.
And if you guys have any information or want any information on how to become a member, it's $35 a year. You can get plugged in with your local chapters. And I'm pretty sure everybody has been invited to a banquet in their day where you can put in and probably win a shotgun or something like that. People go to win the prizes. Am I right? So definitely worth checking out and getting plugged in there. Okay.
Well, the other thing, Casey, like she said, it's a $35 fee for a membership. It gives you a wealth of knowledge mailed to you every other month. It gets you groups that you can get involved with that just have conversations, and you get a $25 gift card from Bass Pro with that $35 membership if you do it online. So it costs you $10.
There you go. Stock up on some turkey calls or something.
And so much of the money raised here in Oklahoma stays in Oklahoma.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's go to what type and size ammo do you like to hunt with?
I use a 12 gauge, and I use heavy shot Magnum blend. That's what I use. Winchester makes an extremely good round. I like to use number 4 or number 5. That Magnum blend is a blend of 4, 5, and 6. 5, 6, and 7 shot. I can't remember one or the other. 4, 5, and 6, or 5, 6, and 7. It's heavier than lead, so it really has an extremely good knockdown power. But it's not cheap. It'll cost you $25 to $30 for a box of 5. But Remington, Winchester, Federal, all of them make turkey loads that are extremely adequate. And I shoot 3.5-inch shells because I'm a sadist. but the first bird I ever killed was with 2 3/4-inch number 5 lead. I mean, it all works.
So I've used, and it's a cheap round because I didn't know any better. But I've had, once you buy a box of turkey shells, you typically have them for a while. So I've been cranking through them. But nitro turkey, the Remington nitro turkey, they're about baseline as you can get. And I've seen my husband buy ammo 3 times as expensive, and hey, they both kill birds, and I've never had a problem with it. And so that's really a good starting, like if you want a cheap starting round, I don't buy anything else because they kill birds, so I have nothing bad to say about them.
It all works.
Yeah.
You can't use any shot larger than BB. You can't use any shot smaller than number 9, which number 9 is basically rat shot. I would recommend using 5 or 6 shot, but a lot of that stuff works really good. So,
and a lot of times they'll just have turkey loads, like they'll just have something geared towards turkey. Am I right, Chad? Like that they market it for turkey hunting. So if you get confused on the loads numbers, then you could just look for turkey shot.
Yes, I would not go buy bird shot. I would get a turkey load, but there's a very broad range of products out there. You just got to find the one that your gun likes and what works best for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good question. What are the best habitat improvements as landowners to help increase population in the area?
Repeat that, please.
What are the best habitat improvements as landowners to help increase population in the area?
Okay, great question.
I can help with this question. I can holler at my husband real fast, who we've been doing property management or turkey management on our property.
Waterways, if you've got a creek or a pond, turkeys love to roost above water, and they do that. My personal thought is they do that to keep cats away from them. Cats won't, the bobcats won't climb up over water to get them. Uh, early spring, late winter burning, controlled burns, really helps the flock. It gets the new grass shoots, the tender grass shoots, and it gets the bugs coming to the surface. And they say that if you burn a field, the turkeys will be in it before the smoke clears.
That's true.
They will attack it. Making
Roost
funnels
trees.
I'm sorry.
I was going to incorporate or add roost trees. Make sure that you have some big roost trees. Big oak trees are good. A lot of times, like on our property, we had cedar trees that were choking out the growth of our big oak trees, and so we cleaned up around it to give our big roost trees time to get even bigger, because they're just not quite to the size that they need for turkeys to roost in. But they love big branching trees that they can see out of and everything. And so that's another thing, is just making sure you have good abundance of roost trees in your property.
They really like cottonwoods.
Yes.
Oak trees and cottonwoods are probably their favorite. And the other thing is your selective clearing. I would, if you've got a heavily wooded area, you want to clear out some open spaces and make some funnels. That gives them a real good chance to stay in the woods, but get into open areas. And like burning is probably the best thing you can do.
Yeah, I agree. And right now is the time to burn a little bit. We're kind of getting in a little late for the burning. We've been burning our property for that reason. Okay, etiquette of, oh no, here. When running and gunning, do you use any decoys?
A lot of people do. I quit using decoys several years ago just because I would much rather hunt the birds than kill them. But they're kind of a pain to carry around when you're hunting. But a lot of people do it, and I do it if I take a first time hunter out. I'll carry a decoy or two and run and gun with them just to up the odds for a new hunter or a kid. But they can get kind of cumbersome to carry around if you're making a lot of miles in a day.
Just good to have one that you can roll up and put in your pack. We end up having one that you can fold up, real lightweight foam ones. They don't have to be pretty. We have some old bleached out ones that will still bring in birds. Just so curious. That's why they come in. Okay. Etiquette of turkey hunting on public land. This will be my first season.
Scouting, get out there as early as you can and scout and make some backup spots to go. So don't go to just one public hunting area and plan to hunt it every day. Find 2 or 3 places that you go, maybe on the same WMA, but pick a few places that you want to scout and locate birds. Because if you pull up into the parking lot of a WMA one morning and there's 6 trucks there, you probably ought to go someplace else, because you're gonna walk into hunters, and that can not only be dangerous, it's just not real ethical. The other thing that I highly recommend you do, if you do walk into another guy's hunt, be sure to let them know you're there and that you're leaving. And have a conversation with them. They may tell you, you know what, I'm getting ready to leave, go ahead. Or if you go down to the left a ways, there's nobody down there. I always try to have a conversation with other hunters whenever I run across them in the field. Do you have anything to add to that, Casey?
And can turkey see orange? I'm blanking on if I've public hunted with some orange on.
It's good to wear orange, the things you want to avoid when you're turkey hunting.
Red, white, and blue. Yeah, it's good to wear orange if you're gonna public hunt. Just just be cognizant of other people around you. You know, you don't have to wear hunter orange, but I would on any public, just put a ball cap on. Think colors you want to avoid are red, white, and blue, only because that's the color of a gobbler's head. You do not want to imitate anything that looks like that. And we're not saying this to scare you on public hunting land at all, because really after the first weekend, it dies down. And if you can go during the weeks or the weekdays,
Yep.
your chances are incredibly increased. However, I would say that to really get into some good habitat and some untouched property, a lot of public land hunters will only go so far into a property. And if you get to that point where you're like, man, I've gone really far in here, go further. And that's when you will get into some really prime habitat that most other people won't put in the effort and the time to get into, because it's just a lot of, you got to do it on foot. But if you're able to do it, I definitely say you think you've gone as far as you can go, and then go further, and then that'll probably really reward you in the end.
That's a fact. And the other thing is what I brought up earlier, that cast and blast. There's a lot of public hunting areas in Oklahoma that you can't get to on foot, and not a whole lot of people go by boat. So if you've got a canoe or a little flat bottom boat, you can get to a lot of areas where you're not going to run across other hunters.
Absolutely.
And it's a lot of fun
Yeah,
to
it is.
fish and hunt all day.
There's a lot of OLAP properties that, especially up in like Ponca City area, that are all along that, I guess it's Cimarron River, and you can hop from OLAP property to OLAP property on a kayak, which would be very, very fun. I've kind of wanted to do that in the past, and you can fish. There's spoonbill on that river actually, and it's been a good little spot. Someone's asked, what are some good WMAs or public land to hunt? So I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger here. We're going to talk about that the last of this series. And so if in the meantime, if you want to go check out places to go on our website, that we have an area where all the public hunting lands are, and you can kind of spot and like look at aerials and kind of see if you know what you're looking for, which once again, we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks. But if you know what you're looking for, you can really kind of spot some places that look like they'd be really good turkey habitat. We have some good OLAP properties in this north central, like I said, Ponca City area that I do know I've seen some turkeys on before too. So, and if you have a kayak or a little boat, that'd be an awesome opportunity for you. But we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. What is the turkey's routine during the day after coming off the roost? That's a great question.
It is a great question. So early in the season, the hens will always fly down first. The hens and gobblers want to roost together, but the hens will always come down first, and she will fly down and immediately start eating. And she will walk and eat all day long, and get disturbed by a gobbler every now and then to breed, but she's on the move all the time. They will walk and walk and walk, and traditionally with the Rios here in Oklahoma, they will roost in the same trees every night, unless they're just pushed around too much. Easterns are a little different, but Rios and Merriams will always roost in the same area unless they get pushed out. So if you see them fly down in the morning and they go a different direction, you can come back that afternoon and ambush them on their way back to the roost, because they will come back there unless they get pushed out of the area. But they are survivors. They walk, eat, and drink and breed. That's all they do. But they always walk.
They'll also, so the hens will fly down first, and you'll hear the gobblers up in the trees still gobbling. They'll be calling on the roost in the morning. It's kind of cool. It kind of gets your heart pumping when you see the hens down there and you know that there's gobblers up in those trees hollering at them. And they'll fly down shortly after. And another thing, when it's like, we've had some spring turkey hunts where it's been super hot, and so midday those turkeys will actually go and find shade and sit under some shade trees, at least out in like Weatherford area where I've hunted a lot of turkeys. Just studying their behavior. They'll go find some cedar trees or something and some dirt and kind of give themselves dirt bath and stay underneath some shade when it's super, super hot outside.
That's a fact. That dirt bath is mainly to keep the mites off of them,
Yes.
but they are so well insulated, and they get hot extremely fast with the sun. So yeah, when it gets hot, they'll look for shade.
Yep.
No doubt about it.
Someone asked orange. I thought camo was important. Can turkey see orange? I don't think
I
turkey.
can't tell you if
I
they're
know.
colorblind or not, but what I do know, just because it's orange doesn't mean it's not breaking up your outline. You can buy camo orange
Yeah.
or I can't tell you if turkeys are colorblind or not. I don't think they are. But
I think they specifically see
know,
certain colors more apparently, like the red, white, and blues. They've kind of been naturally selected to go that route with, and you can look at the colors of their bodies and see that that's the colors that they're attracted to. So I would love to get that confirmed, and I can talk to our turkey biologist, and I assume you'll be here next week, Mike, to listen to the other one, and I should have an answer for you on that one, because more so it's for your safety on public land. When I'm hunting private land, I do not wear orange, just because it's not required, really.
right. And I hunt public land a little bit, not a whole lot, but when I do, I always do it during the week, and I hardly ever run across hunters.
Yeah.
Hardly ever. But I don't wear orange on public land, but I wouldn't want to tell people not to. It's certainly a good idea. I would wear a breakup orange.
Yeah, and what that means is just like the camo that has the orange behind it just has, instead of like a solid orange, it has like the leaves and stuff on it, but it's bright orange behind it. That way it breaks your pattern up some, instead of just one block of a solid color. Someone asked, when in very windy or steady rain conditions, techniques, what type of techniques can we use to hunt them?
That's a great question. If it's windy, like Casey was talking about, when it's hot, they will go into cover and down in some low spots and trees and get out of the wind, because they rely so much on seeing and hearing to survive. And if it's windy, they're seeing all the grasses blow and leaves and limbs blowing, and it's movement. They just don't like it, so they'll go into cover. Raining. If you go out in the morning and it's raining, go to your spot, stay in your truck, and just as it quits raining, get your butt out in the field. They will stay in cover while it's raining, 100%. But as soon as it stops, they're out eating and breeding and moving around. And some of the best turkey hunts I've had has been 2 minutes after a thunderstorm stopped. You can set your watch by it. If it quits raining, you need to be headed out right then and there. I have a great Easter Sunday hunting story where I drove an hour to a spot in a thunderstorm. Just as I got there, it quit raining. 10 minutes later, I shot a bird and was home in another hour. I hunted for 10 minutes on Easter Sunday, and it was all because of thunderstorms. And I got home and I was cleaning the bird up. My wife came out in the garage and said, "I thought you were hunting today," and I was already done. It was awesome. I was home by 8 o'clock in the morning. I had an hour trip away, and I was home by 8 o'clock in the morning. It was awesome.
Yeah, and in the summertime or the springtime, you run across rain all the time, so that's very likely to happen on one of your hunts.
Don't go home if it's raining. If you're looking at the weather and it's going to stop sometime soon, stay there. You'll be rewarded.
Yep. Okay, another question. Do flocks keep the same path of travel if they return to their original roosting spot? For species that don't roost in the same spot, do they have multiple roosting spots or just make their own spot as they move? So kind of two-part question. So like the same habits, like they go to the same places at the same time of day?
They're pretty predictable. They're easy to ambush if you know their pattern. They will not deviate, and that goes for all the species. Especially Rios, but the Marians and the Easterns, they all want to roost pretty much in the same close vicinity every night, unless they get pushed around by predators or other hunters. They will. Easterns will leave the country if they're pushed too hard. Rios not so much.
Yeah. And Easterns, a lot of times, are in those pine forests, and they'll roost up in a pine tree. So we talked about cottonwoods and oaks being roost spots. Over in Eastern, like down in the Ouachitas, they roost up in pine trees, and they don't ever roost in the same tree twice, I would say, on public land at least. Yeah, you can correct me. I just have never been able to locate them and find them the next morning.
The Easterns are a much harder bird to hunt. They're not near as predictable.
Yeah.
And that's what I hunt. I'm right on the Arkansas border, and I could locate birds for 2 weeks every morning for 2 weeks before the season starts, and opening day they have left the country.
Yep.
I don't know if because they've been pushed out or what, but they're not near as predictable as the Marians or the Rios.
I just remember last year I called Easterns because it was my first bird I ever hunted was an Eastern. I'm from Eastern part of the state, and then after hunting Rios are very vocal. They'll come gobbling from a mile away. You'll hear them coming to you. Easterns, I call them forest ninjas because they are just absolutely quiet. You won't know, and then there's just one popped up on you, and you're not prepared for it. They didn't gobble before they came in. They are literally little forest ninjas that'll come and go in a blink of an eye. So you have to be so much more aware of Easterns, in my opinion. They're a lot harder to hunt.
I couldn't agree more. They will typically not do hardly any gobbling after they've flown down.
Yeah,
They just won't. But
very true.
yeah, the Marians are extremely vocal also. They make a lot of racket. But that Eastern, you're right, they're ghosts.
Yeah, maybe that'll be one of our code words, forest ninja, in the future. Stay tuned. Okay. So how large is their range? It's another good question. I don't actually know the number.
They'll walk several miles in a day. They make some pretty big loops. They go a lot. They make a lot of distance in a day.
I think it also matters on habitat too, and resources, right? A lot of turkeys will, if they have everything they need in a little smaller of an area, they don't have to go as far.
Correct. But that breeding cycle will bring birds from a long ways to a flock too. But they never quit moving. From the time they fly down till they fly up, they are on the move.
Yep. Okay. Recommendations to keep the ticks away. Pre-treat your clothes with permethrin.
Yes. What is that product?
Sawyer permethrin.
Oh, you can get it at Walmart or Academy or Bass Pro. It's a treatment. You don't spray it on yourself. You spray it on your clothes and let it dry, and the ticks will crawl up on those clothes and die. And it'll work up to 6 to 8 weeks. So pretty much the whole season, and that's including 3 or 4 washes.
Yes.
I highly recommend Sawyer's. I also highly recommend a Thermacell for mosquitoes and flies. I always carry a Thermacell.
Yes.
And you can get those at any of those places also. But I live by Sawyer's.
Yeah, it's a great product. That's what I've always used. It lasts the longest on your clothes. You can find some other ones that say that they do the same thing, but Sawyer's probably the leader in that category of permethrin sprays.
Yeah, and it's not expensive. You can buy a bottle of it for $12, and that'll treat 5 or 6 different sets of clothing. But one treatment will last you the whole season.
Yep. Okay, when do turkey? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Deer season I'll treat 2 or 3 times turkey season, you're good. Just treat it at the beginning of the season and you're good for the whole season.
Yep. Okay, when do turkeys roost before it's dark?
Right at dusk.
Like right when the sun would go down, or because you can just 30 minutes after sunset?
No,
Am I wrong? Am I
not
wrong?
anymore. No, it used to be 30 minutes after sunset, but not anymore.
30 minutes, it's at sunset now.
Ask Jacob. I'm almost 100% sure of that. He's not around.
My husband's a game warden, so Jacob, when's the cutoff for hunting turkeys in the evening? I'm blanking here. 30 minutes after sunset? It's sunset?
Yep.
He said he
Yeah, I
believes it's
thought-
sunset.
It used to be 30 minutes after, but they changed that a few years back, and it's right at sunset, and you can hunt them at minutes before sunrise.
Okay,
But,
maybe that's what it was. That's what I was getting confused. So deer hunting, you can hunt up till 30 minutes after sunset. So
It's 1/2 hour before official sunrise to official sunset.
okay, so 30 minutes before
what-
sunrise, and then for sunset, you have to cut it off at sunset.
and those timetables are in the regulations.
No, they're not.
They're not?
No, they took the time things out of the regulations. Now you have to get it online or through the app. But they
Okay,
don't have
cool.
the nice little chart in there anymore.
Well,
There's that.
budget.
Yeah, a lot of people not happy about that.
I bet
Yep.
not.
Well, thank you, Jake.
He'll guest star in our last episode. He only knew that a few days ago that he was going to be teaching the regulations, but some of the benefits from marrying a warden, I suppose. Okay, so how many flocks are located on one area or WMA? Like, are there one flock per 10 square miles or something like that?
It'd be impossible for me to answer that.
Yeah,
You know, whatever the habitat will allow, they'll be there. You might see a flock of 8 or 10 birds, and you might see a flock of 100 birds. I haven't seen that in a long time, but they're out there, and they'll have breakaway flocks. If the property can handle it, they could be 2 or 3 flocks on a 30-acre piece of property.
Yep.
But that would be very difficult to answer.
that's my experience too. Okay, guys, I'm sorry to cut this off so short. We got a lot of good questions in here. I'm glad that you guys were as involved. And I'm worried about my internet connection as the storms are rolling in, so I don't want to get disconnected here. If you guys have any more questions, you guys can ask myself or Chad. Chad knows more than I do. Lynn as well. Chad wants to tell you about this book real fast.
If you want to just go out and learn a whole bunch about turkeys and turkey hunting on your own, and this is a real good read. It's called The 10th Legion, written by Tom Kelly. It was written back in the early 70s, and a lot of the stuff he was speculating that he thought was true has come true. So it's a real easy read. You can read it a day and a half, maybe 2 days at the most, but I read it every season. It's a really good read, and it's full of incredibly good information. So it's called The 10th Legion by Tom Kelly. Really, it's the turkey hunting Bible. There you go.
Awesome. I might link that on our turkey hunting resources page too.
And it's $7 or $8.
Good deal. Well, it's 8 o'clock, like I said, so I think we're going to wrap this up. And yeah, TomKellyInc.net. Perfect.
There you go. And you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we all need to say a big thank you to Chad for taking his evening to chat with us about all the things we talked about, the habitat and breeding and everything, the behavior. We really appreciate it. And remember, he's open to any more questions you guys might have. But until next time, so we're going to see you next Turkey Tuesday, and we're going to talk about gear essentials, shotguns, everything you need to get ready to hunt turkeys in the field. So I sure appreciate you guys tuning in for this one, and we'll just see you next week. And remember to email me that code word so I know that you attended.
Casey, Chad, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
Lynn.
attending, Lynn.
Glad I could get in on it.
Maybe we'll see you next week.
Well, if you're not busy Saturday night, come to Weatherford.
Okay. I got that little one. I might have to make something work.
Bring it on. We let Jake's in the building.
All right. Sounds good. Oh, you'll let my Jake in the building?
Thank you, everybody. Really, Casey's gonna give you my business card if you didn't write all that stuff down. If you
Yes.
ever want to talk about turkeys, call me or email me, and we'll strike up a conversation. There's not much I'd rather talk.
And to Jasper, the next class will start at 7 o'clock. Everyone will start at 7 o'clock.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.